Okay, so welcome to On the Rocks with Jen and Tam. Um, Before we get started today with our very first debut episode, yay! I wanted to take a few minutes to acknowledge someone that was very, very vital to my career, very vital to me becoming an author, and just an all around, just sweet, endearing, dope soul. Her name was Cecilia Austin, and she passed away on yesterday. And my condolences to her family, my prayers to her family. Um, Life is really short and things happen so unexpectedly, and never in a million years would I have thought that some information that I would have received. She and I were just talking not too long ago about my upcoming second book.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm devastated right now because she was very integral to the publishing, the creation of my first debut novel,
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix Rising. That book would not exist without her.
Right.
Because, and I'll go ahead and tell the story now. Initially, she was a professional writer, and initially when I approached her, I approached her on a ghostwriting situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I'm not a writer. That was
Right.
not, my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted it. I had a story that I felt like the world needed to hear.
Right.
But I wanted it, I'm a perfectionist. I wanted it done by the best,
Yes. I know.
And so she, loved the idea, and she was just like, but no, I'm not ghostwriting this. She said, you need to do this. I'm going to mentor you. I'll walk you through this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what she did. She walked me through it. She held my hand, and then she pushed me off a cliff and said, now it's time for you to fly.
Yeah. Best way to do it sometimes.
Right. Absolutely. And so, when she, after that, anytime I needed a guest blog, she would, step in. Anytime she needed a writing, prompt from me, I would gladly, because I feel like I owe her everything.
Right.
So just wanted to take a few minutes to acknowledge her and her contribution to this planet. She was just one of those people that she was just a ball of sunshine every time you saw her. And she was just one of those people that once you met her, you're like, where have you been all my life?
Right. Yeah. We need those type of people in our lives.
Absolutely.
Really unfortunate that, we have people who are so inconsiderate of other people's lives.
Right.
To where we even have to talk about, such a tragedy, at this point.
Right.
But definitely our condolences out to her family.
Absolutely.
And her friends and anybody that knew her, and the impact that she had on your life. May you cherish those memories and those moments, and may her, her life not have been lived in vain.
Absolutely. So one more housekeeping thing. Don't forget, everyone, that there is a giveaway going on currently. Every 1,000 follower on the Facebook channel, on the YouTube channel, on Twitter, and on Instagram, every 1,000 follower, you will win a $150 gift card, a Visa gift card, which means it's basically $150 because you can use it anywhere. There are no stipulations. There are none of that. It's just $150 to use as you see fit. You want to pay a bill, you want to go out to eat, you want to buy a new pair of shoes.
Free money
just for subscribing and following. I'm not even asking for you to participate. Just subscribe. Okay. So you'll win that. And also, in addition to the $150 gift card, you will win a signed first chapter sneak peek of the new book. Okay. It's not coming out until November. So that is a really big thing. And then one day when I blow up, it's going to be worth some money. You're going to wish you had it. Okay. Now, let's dive in to today's topic. Woo! Let's get ready. Today's topic: how do you define toxic parenting? Today's topic comes from a follower who inboxed me telling me a story, and she gave me this story as material to use for an upcoming book or novel. However, it touched me in a very deep place that I decided to, take it and reformat it. Instead of a book, let's, try to help out someone else who may or may not realize what toxic parenting is, or if they feel like something is toxic and it's really not. Let's just kind of put a definition and a picture and distinguish between the two. Because a lot of the things that we're calling toxic these days is not really toxic. A lot of people, and don't get me wrong, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Let me clarify that, okay? Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. There's no judgment here.
Right.
But for instance, I don't believe that spanking is toxic parenting.
No.
Now, it may not work for everyone, but I don't think it's toxic. What I do feel like is toxic is what this follower inboxed me. She stated that the other parent, the non-custodial parent or the parent that's outside of the home, was referring to the children as bitch, hoe on a regular basis. Like, you being a bitch, or stop acting like a bitch, or you a punk ass bitch, or you a hoe.
Is this the male?
This was the male parent.
Okay.
This is the male parent. Now, because you touched on that, we know there are some female parents,
right,
that will refer to their daughters as hoes and bitches, or you stupid slut, or things like that.
Yeah.
I feel like are toxic parenting traits, because you are in essence destroying that child. You're destroying how they view themselves. You're destroying how they allow others to view them or to treat them or to address them.
Well, I believe it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was called every name in the book growing up, and as a child,
really,
yeah, absolutely, bitches.
I met your mother.
You haven't met my mom,
clearly. Okay.
Hey,
wow,
yeah, it was a very toxic environment, and like we said, a lot of it is cultural, a lot of it is learned behavior, and a lot of it a lot of it is something that we really don't want to touch on within the Black community is mental health. You got to look at where their parenting styles come from, how they were raised, what influences they were exposed to, or that they had in their lives growing up that makes them want to think it's okay for them to treat their children or raise their children in this type of environment. So for the longest, when I was a young girl, I would be referred to as a bitch or a whore.
Okay, can you give more context to that? Like a more specific example, if you can.
Okay.
Like how it will be used towards you.
All right. So perfect example. We were having a sleep. So I believe this was going into my 6th grade year.
Okay.
And my parents were separated, but my mom, we lived in an apartment, and so my sister would have friends come over, and my mom was, I guess now that I'm older, I kind of understand, that survival mentality, so it was pretty much, a fight for the finish, if that makes any sense. But I remember one particular day, my sister had some friends over, and my mom walked into the room. She was getting ready to go to work. And, we're young girls, we're sleep. It's the summertime, we're sleeping, we're all on the floor sleeping. And so she goes, "Wake up, WHORES, whores." And we're like young girls, middle school age. I'm going into the 6th grade. And, and I guess maybe we laughed about it. I don't remember what the initial reaction was, but, and I remember even we would kind of laugh about it. But then I think the older that I got, I realized how much it destroyed my self-esteem.
Okay.
And how much I hated that word. You know, I hated being called a bitch or being called a whore, because it was a trigger to me, because I feel like when I got old enough to understand what the word meant and how it was used as a derogatory term, I'm like, well, damn, my mom called me that, you know? So it made me feel some type of way about myself. And I realized it was a trigger because when I was older, 24 years old to be exact, I was working as a contractor overseas. Okay. And I was working in the mailroom, and this guy called me a bitch because I was not able to find a package. He had gotten a notice that he had received a mail. And so he had come to the mail office, and I was working in there temporarily just to help out. And I was like, well, sir, I can't find your package. You know, it was either a mistake or, just give me some time and, I'll look through the rest of the packages at a later time. Let me get the line out of the way. Right. So he called me a bitch. And I remember leaping over the counter.
Wait.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready.
No. Okay. I leaped over the counter. You would have thought I was like one of Charlie's Angels. I literally leaped over the counter. Okay. And I ran out of the office, and we're in Iraq now. So I say, that's not your average sandbox. So over there, they don't have rocks. They have boulders, literally. They're like these big. So I remember I just went into a rage. I was seeing red, and I remember reaching down and picking up this boulder, and I was like this, and somebody caught my hand and did that. Right. Yeah. I was about to bash this guy's head in because and at that point I realized it was a trigger for me. Okay. Like and then some other stuff along the way. But I think we have to, children are so impressionable and vulnerable. Absolutely. and they absorb everything that they're exposed to, no matter Absolutely. How minor. So we really have to be careful with what we expose our children to, and how, and the nature of what we say to them, because it does indeed have long-term effects on how children see themselves and how they respond to negative commentary. I would say how they see themselves, as adults, as young ladies, you being called a bitch. And I remember being called a bitch, and I just in my mind I was like, well, hell, if this is what you think of me, then let me act like this, so, or being called a whore. Well, let me show you what a whore looks like. Let me act like this, you know? So you gotta, it's, you go into like a reactive mode, mindset. And that, that right there was, I guess what my first understanding of toxic parenting.
Okay. I think that, like, okay, I'll make it personal real quick. I know for me, my children hear colorful language. Okay. I'm a Christian. I love Jesus. Jesus loved me. But I'm sure he's just like this when I'm talking sometimes. Okay. Because it's going to be a shit, damn, a couple of FUCKs coming out of there occasionally. Right. But it's not talking, it's not directed at my children, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not saying fuck you and da 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 da, you little shit, or nothing like that. It'll be like I drop something, shit, or I forgot something, god damn it, it's just yeah. Or even with the little bitty person, the little terrorist that I just had a year ago. It's been a couple, god damn it, why you can't sit down, but it's not at her. It'll be like after she left the room, or something of that nature. Because I love my children, and don't get me wrong, parenting is not for the weak of heart. It's not for everybody.
Well, I like to say, children don't come with a manual,
and they do not come with a manual. There's no, oh, this is happening, let me check the book and see.
It's all trial and error,
right? And that's a-okay, because nobody's going to get it right. And then children I have 4 children. All 4 of them are different personalities. So even if there was a manual, it wouldn't apply to every kid. Right. Like every kid would have their own manual. Right. The thing that the thing that is, to me, my goal is that as long as they're mentally healthy, as long as they are mentally strong, as long as they are confident, in themselves and what they're doing, that's kind of my rule of thumb or my gauge for how I'm accomplishing my job.
Okay. So how do you measure that?
So far it's with conversation. You know what I mean? Like, I know this may sound probably weird, but right now I have this thing with lying. We're going through the lying phase. Okay. We all go through it. So that's where I am right now. And with my children, I tell them even the little white lies that you think are not harmful are still harmful. And so if I see something wrong with them, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Stop lying to me.
Right.
I address it head on.
Right.
Now, it might make them uncomfortable or, just like, oh, here she go. But I need you to talk to me.
And that's important.
I need to know where you are. I need to know what's going on. And sometimes in their mind, something is so super huge. Like, for example, yesterday, there is a situation where my youngest son, he wasn't angry, but he was upset. And so he was saying, he was stomping around, he was slamming the doors, he was throwing, flinging, as he was cleaning up, and it's angry man, right? And so when he I sat him down and said, hey, come here. What's wrong with you? Nothing, mama. Nothing's wrong with me. Tone. Because the building ain't too far. And but I was trying to lighten the mood because I need you to talk to me. But they're also at that age where they don't want to talk. You know what I mean? But that's not okay. Because if you're not talking, you're internalizing.
Right.
And I don't want them to continue that cycle because I was that child that internalized everything. And then when it blows up, because you can't control the blow up.
No. And you don't know when it's coming.
I was 21 years old. My very first child had died. And I imploded completely. And so I don't want that for my children. If nothing else, learn how to communicate, learn how to express what's bothering you.
Well, I think the more important notion from that is teaching children how to communicate, because children, their ways of communicating are very different with adults. And we also have to look at how we respond to a child who is trying to communicate a disappointment, a hurt, or, dissatisfaction with something.
Absolutely.
Because I know, for our generation, it's talking back. Right. What goes on in this house stays in this house.
Yes.
And I put a post out about that, not so long ago. Those type of comments will cause children to internalize and shut down. And go ahead.
And here's the thing, I still use it. What goes on in this house stays in this house, but I give it context. You see what I'm saying?
To a certain degree. But my thing is, like, if we need to be mindful of our actions and behaviors as parents, as adults, not just parents, as adults, period.
Right.
And what we expose ourselves to. So, if there's a personal, things going on in the house, you kind of want to, you want to put some limits on, what you expose your kids to even give them the knowledge of, hey, let me go talk about this,
right?
And they don't know anything. But I feel like this, if something is bothering you, and this is one thing that I tell my kids, if something is bothering you and you can't talk to me, or you think you can't talk to me about it, I want you to go find somebody that you trust and express.
Or tell me, mommy, I need to talk to somebody.
Right.
And I'll find, together, we'll find a comfortable space. Because I get it. Some things you just flat out don't want to talk to your mom about, whether you think it's going to hurt her feelings, or even dads. It's going to hurt dad's feelings, because there's single dads out there too.
Yeah.
You don't, and then sometimes you want to be able to talk about something, you don't want feedback about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want to get it off your chest. and be done with it.
And we do that as adults as well. So, we just, I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to
just shut up, listen.
Right.
Let me say this, how ugly it is in my head. Like, I don't want to have to filter. Because sometimes you just want to it is.
And so, aside from verbal communication, what I also look for, and I had a real big thing, like when my kids come home from school, I wanted to be there when they were younger. I want to be home. I want to see your face. I want to see how you look when you walk through the door, because I can, based on your facial expression, and I'm like that too. Like, the only way you'll ever know something's wrong with me is my face is gonna tell it all.
Right.
So my facial reaction, if they're always complaining of being sick, and I learned this just through my own process and my own trauma, oh, I don't feel well, or that's their way of communicating, hey, something's wrong, I need to talk about it. I don't know I just don't know how to communicate and tell you what's wrong.
Right.
And a lot of times kids don't even know what's wrong.
Absolutely.
So that's another thing we as parents need to be mindful of. But this whole, I think it gets more into the toxic cycle when we force kids to suppress their emotions and stop crying, or don't nobody want to hear that, or when we force children or people to suppress their ideas, to suppress their emotions, and it internalizes, well, it's gonna fester in one way or another. It's going to fester in some bad habits.
Absolutely.
So if we look at our generation of children, we see a lot of quote unquote bad behaviors. And you're wondering, like, well, where is this child's parent? Who's allowing this to happen? You got kids in the house cursing out grown people. But that's what they're exposed to. So do you blame the child? How do you even discipline a child when this is what they're exposed to and what they're allowed to do? Now, I'm like you, I cuss.
Right. I think we all do after last year.
I try not to. I'm sorry. But hey, it is what it is at this point. But like you said, I tell my kids, like, I'm not cursing at you. Sometimes I will, they're older now. So I'm just like, hey, if this is wrong and I think it's pretty trifling, I'm very assertive and very upfront with how I feel.
Right.
But when it comes to little kids and I think like the first 5 to, those first 5 years are crucial to what they're
the most impressionable.
But then even up to those preteen years, when they start going through, preteens and hitting puberty and learning themselves, and they're trying to figure themselves out. They're trying to figure their emotions out. I have an 18-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and they're all very different.
Absolutely,
they're all very different. So, you really have to learn your child. In order to even begin to address the idea of toxic parenting, like, I even have to question myself, like, is what are the decisions and the choices that I'm making, how are they going to affect my children long term?
What's your definition
of toxic parenting? Woo.
How do you define it for you?
Okay, for me, I've had some cycles of toxic parenting. I will be transparent about that, because if you know me, you know my story. I have, I have been through childhood abuse and trauma. I have dealt with, spousal abuse. I've dealt with emotional abuse. So for me, like I said, not being able to express myself as a child and internalizing what I now realize I was very depressed. I would cry, I would, having friends was very important. If somebody didn't like me, I went above and beyond and, would try to manipulate the friendships, buying people things so that they would like me, or I would maybe just do things for attention. And now I realize that was a part of processing trauma, understanding trauma. But to go into the whole toxic parenting thing was, I think I went through a cycle of toxic parenting because I didn't value myself. I always, I love my children and I go hard for my kids. There's nothing that my kids have ever needed. They may go without most of their wants, but I just realized I was in a reactive state to all the pain and hurt that had been inflicted on me. And my first husband was physically abusive.
Okay.
And so that was really, I went through the whole emotional and verbal abuse and some physical abuse with, from my mom. And so I reacted to that by thinking, when I got into this relationship, well, this is as good as it's going to get, and I knew, and my first husband, we knew each other from high school, but I always remember thinking like, this is, I liked him as a friend, but, I just didn't know that he was somebody, he was husband material for me.
Okay.
And, but I loved him. And, but we went through an abusive state. And then after I finally just was able to leave the marriage, I had a lot of resentment and a lot of anger. And it was because of, I had never processed, all the feelings that, it was all these feelings and emotions compiled. So a lot of times I would lash out on my kids. Like if I didn't have money or I was struggling financially or, it's exhausting. Parenting is exhausting. So if I was exhausted or stressed out about something, and I just, I'm constantly pouring out into people, but there's nobody pouring back into me.
Okay.
So again, those unprocessed emotions, they filter out and they fester in toxic ways. And that could be me going on these yelling rants, or, if I would spank my kids, and they say don't spank your kids when you're angry, but I realized I would spank my kids when I was angry.
Okay.
And it wasn't it wasn't like I'm beating them, but it's like, okay, I'm upset. So, I'm going to spank you because you acted up at school.
Right.
And now that I'm older and I've gone through mental health therapy, I realized a lot of that could have just been handled with talking and figuring out, okay, why are you acting this way?
Gotcha.
Or, I could have talked to my kids instead of, just whooping them every time they do something wrong, or whooping them because I'm angry, or I'm feeling, some type of way, or I'm feeling like a failure as a mom and I'm lashing out at my kids.
Gotcha. That was kind of the resolution with my son the other day. He had his best friend, who was my oldest daughter. Her birthday was Monday. And so she wanted for her birthday to go to her aunt's house and be over there for a while.
Okay.
And that's fine, but he was lashing out because his ultimate frustration was, my best friend's home. I want to play the video game. She doesn't want to play with me.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
But it had to come down to, we have to talk. Mm-hmm. And I could have easily allowed his frustration to become my frustration. And now the whole house is in disorder and disarray because of something so simple as he just needs to learn how to express himself. Mm-hmm. So we had a conversation and I told him, like, look, just say that. It's okay. Right. It's okay to say, Cakes, I missed you. Can you come play the game with me?
Right.
Or you too, masculine, too manly to say I missed you. Like, come play the game with me. Let's play this.
Right.
It's ways to convey what you're feeling, without saying too much or too little, at this stage in life. But for me, I think that I was a very toxic mother the first time around. When I became a mother for the first time, I was 18 years old. Mm-hmm. Me and his dad we were toxic together.
Right.
We ain't know. You couldn't tell us we wasn't in love.
You don't know that you're toxic until you take a step out.
And you look back and like, ooh, we were terrible.
A lot of it is circumstantial,
right?
A lot
and it wasn't like we had knockdown dragouts or nothing like that. Like, don't get me wrong, every relationship has its ups and downs. Mm-hmm. But when I say we were toxic, it was just like we would argue over the stupidest things. We called ourselves breaking up one time, right? And we're parents now, so this is how silly we were. Okay, we said we broke up, so now every argument was, oh, you've had our son for too long, you had him 2 days, it's time for him to come home. Well, you didn't had him 2 days, it's time for him to come be with him. That would be, and I mean, it would be ugly. you know, we was keep calling each other everything but a child of God, arguing about how long the child have been with each other.
And ultimately, you have the child in the middle, and
well, he never saw anything. Now, I will say that we never did this in front of him, but it was still, that's still terrible because of that, we ended up getting back together.
Well, okay, so I'll take it a step further. Okay, so when the child isn't witnessing the arguments or the
because
whatever, you know,
the thing, it's not because we were great parents.
You as a mom, you know, and dads too, the child feels that energy. You know,
here's the thing: in that particular case, he didn't feel it because he was never there. Like, I'm the baby of my family. His dad was the baby of his family, and the two babies then had a baby. So this is the golden child, okay?
Right.
This baby, we were hardly ever parenting. That's the crazy thing. Like, you couldn't tell us we weren't the best parents in the world.
Right.
But how are we parents when we never have our child?
We never have the child, right? Yeah.
And then when we did get him, it was, we have a party to go to, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Birthday party, you know, whatever, some type of function. Now, this is why I say I was a toxic mother, because we would dress this child up. This child was like one of them little dolls that you dress up. We put this child in Gucci. We put the boy in Tommy Hilfiger. I think the lowest name brand was Polo, like that this child wore. Okay, not bragging. Just we thought that was good parenting,
right?
Like, my child has to have the best of the best, you know.
And but you see a lot of that.
We dressed this child up. One time, I'll never forget this, in all white to go to a children's birthday party. He better not get dirty. He better not get no food on his clothes. He better not get a spot of juice on none of this. Because if he do, I was going to spank his butt.
And so it's more about, okay, so my question to you is, so was it more about you, your image, or was it really about the child? It's less about the child and more about you.
At that time, it was our image.
Right.
But of course, hindsight is 2020. It was my image.
Right.
You know, how I ain't walking around with no dirty, filthy child. Mm-hmm. You know, he got on Gucci. You don't get Gucci dirty. You don't get this dirty. You don't.
And you know, it's funny that you say
just
that.
Just delusional.
It's funny that you say that because I have a family, extended family,
mm-hmm.
and the young, you know, and she's a good mom, and you know, her idea of good parenting is she buys name brands for her kids,
right?
And I mean, the kids are dressed to the nines every time I see them. And the little boy, she wants to dress him in, you know, in the Polo and the Gucci and everything is name brand. I mean, one outfit may cost $400 or $500. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, okay, he's what, 7, 8, 9,
it don't last.
You know, but the sad part is he doesn't want that. He content.
Wants the light up shoes.
He's content with, you know, Geronimo's, mm-hmm. The colorful stuff you get from Walmart. Yep. I mean, that's his go-to.
That was my favorite.
And again, it goes back to learned behaviors. Like, what type of values are we teaching our children? Like, what are we putting? We're teaching them to put value in.
For me, I ain't going to cut you off. For me, it wasn't my parents. With no Gucci. With no
Gucci. What? With the wieners.
You being a hoochie? No, mama. Good. Never mind. Just never mind.
It's not like that.
We went. I'm at Wieners. I'm in Montgomery Ward. Y'all probably, I'm telling my age now. I'm telling my age. Montgomery Ward, Wieners, Joskis,
Kmart,
Woolworth.
Yes.
Listen, my fanciest pair of sneakers before I started working at 11 years old, K-Swiss.
Yeah.
That was my that was my name brand.
No, LA Gear.
Shut up, girl. You doing better than me because I couldn't get them. Baby.
LA Gear and All-Star starter suits, the short sets.
Shut up. I wanted one of them. My mom wouldn't get it.
Girl, yeah.
But
That was the flea market.
I know. She would not get it. Girl, I had a Jabot outfit from the flea market one time, and I had to beg for this. Beg for it. But when I got older, my thing was, it was because of me. Like, my mama, my shoes had to be literally falling apart before I got another pair. And so once I started working, I started playing the piano professionally at 11. Baby, them checks started rolling in. I got my own money. I don't have to wait on mama. I just need a ride to the store.
Right.
You couldn't tell me nothing. I discovered Tommy Hilfiger, Polo, all these good things. And I just said I would never do that to my child, because prior to this, I'm getting ridiculed at school. I'm already getting picked on because I think I'm cute. That's a subject for another day. I think I'm cute. I think I'm too good. All the colorisms that we do to ourselves. And I just said I would never do that to my child.
So never do what? Put your kid in expensive clothes?
No, in cheap clothes.
In cheap clothes. Okay.
To be ridiculed at school and made fun of, because mind you, when you grow up in the hood, it's the broke folks that's got all the good stuff.
Yeah. And that's a mentality within our culture.
Right. That's another day.
That's a mentality within our culture. And
but all the bully kids and all the the hood kids, because they had all the Jordans and all the Air Forces and Huaraches and all this stuff, and Jabot pants and the real stuff, not stuff from flea market.
Right. Yeah.
They got all.
So then you take it to another level, because
I went to the extreme.
Now
I had something to prove.
Okay. So now that we're going in that direction, like you look at, okay, like you said, from the hoods, and like we knew our parents didn't have a lot of money, and they necessarily, and I'm thinking, like, okay, they didn't tell us, but
no,
you just kind of knew, like, okay, you kind of look around and like, okay, well, yeah, so and I'm not here to judge nor condemn anybody, and you're absolutely right. A lot of people from quote unquote the hood, they have the Jordans, they have the Tommy Hilfiger, they have the Polo, they have that. And I was never really into that kind of stuff, because my parents just, we got two, maybe three outfits from Wieners, and that was it,
Right.
And we maybe got a few clothes from during Christmas, but that was it. So I wasn't, the whole name brand thing wasn't forced on us. So it wasn't something that I ever even thought about. Fast forward to, I have my own children, and we live in the suburbs, and, name brands, they don't exist out there.
Right.
Like, they're like, what is this? So I got used to not having to spend that kind of money on my children. Now my children always did dress nice.
Absolutely.
And so that was one of the things that, I took pride in, like my kids dress nice or whatever. Then fast forward to now they're teenagers, and now they're exposed to a lot more things than we were ever exposed to. They're exposed to social media. They're exposed to, other kids at school or whatever. So it's like, now I have to go back and rethink my values and what I'm teaching my kids is, my kids. And I remember my son, he would have this big thing for Jordans. And every time we would go to the school shopping, he wants a pair of Jordans. And I'm like, dude, I have 4 children to buy shoes from. Like, Absolutely. Y'all need to, go to the clearance rack. Like, for what I would spend on one pair of Jordans, like, I'm trying to get everybody at least 2 pairs of shoes.
Absolutely.
And, every year I went through the same thing with him. Like, he wants these Jordans and this and the other. And he's like, well, I never had a pair of Jordans in my life. I said, well, I've never had a pair of Jordans in my life either. And I turned out just fine.
Right.
And so, he's 15 now. And he has, when you take him shopping, everything has to have a name brand or, a logo or this. And I'm just like, you look like, I'm like, you look like an idiot, And he's like, well, this is my style. I said, well, how do you know that's your style? I say, is this the style that you created for yourself, or did you see somebody else with this?
Exactly.
And now you want it? I said, He said, because, he would get excited over Timberlands. Oh my, how would I look in Timberlands? I say, boy, Timberlands been around before I was even thought of. So that's not a big deal. And I'm like, I'm not easily impressed by name brands and logos and things like that. But I would tell him, I say, well, you know what? I say, I'm more impressed with this. How does this function? How does your brain function? How do your grades look? What is your education like? Did you read a book today?
Right.
And he would argue me down with Mom, I need to look a certain way. And I'm like, you know what? I said, you can look a certain way all you want to. I said, you're just gonna be a well-dressed idiot, if you don't have the education to match
absolutely
your appearance, then.
And here's the thing, because I have this conversation. I have a teenager, and he's my oldest, and I will give him this. He's not big on, because this time around, oh my God,
and Amber Alerts.
Okay, because this time around with parenting, because my first child passed away, for those who didn't know, so y'all won't think I got rid of him or something. But but this time around, when I became a mother again, I reprioritized and I reassessed the decisions that I made the first time around, because once again, hindsight is 20/20. And so a lot of things I said I would not whoop my child for everything, because that's who I was the first time around, because of how my mama did with me.
We were raised.
My mama whooped me for everything.
Yeah, you getting a butt whooping.
With the belt. And I mean, it was belts, clothes hangers, shoes, whatever was up in cord. I didn't get the extension cord.
I had a gun pulled on me. Talk about toxic parenting. My mom pulled a gun on us.
Okay, so I never got the extension cord. So thank goodness.
I'm grateful
now I will say, I'm grateful you're here too, baby, because I would never know, because I've met her and I've loved her for some years. You just never know.
You don't know.
I mean, still no judging, because we don't know how she came up.
And that's the thing, that's the thing. Like I had this conversation with her, and I'm just like, regardless of what you went through, like, I know my mom has some trauma in her life.
Absolutely.
And I try to be, patient, but my thing is, at a certain point in life, before we even get to that level, my thing is, regardless of what you were lacking, I understand, things are learned behaviors, but I told her, I say, you are so busy being angry with your past that you completely destroyed your family. You took for granted the opportunity to create something good for yourself.
Okay.
You may not know, and the thing is, like, my mom doesn't know who her biological father is, and so she had this anger with my grandmother I think until my grandmother passed away. My grandmother passed away last year. So I think she's carried this anger and this resentment toward my grandmother her entire life.
Gotcha.
And I just had to tell her, like, have you ever thought about the fact that she just really may not know? It's because you have to realize, women at that point in time, women were oppressed.
They were just trying to survive.
Women are still oppressed. We're not as oppressed as women in the 1800s and the early 1900s, but she just
they couldn't buy a house.
Know.
They couldn't buy a house. They couldn't get a job. They couldn't do, they could get a job, but it was like literally housework.
Yeah,
you're gonna be working in somebody's house. You're gonna be a wet nurse.
That's
taking care of somebody's kids, nanny. You're gonna be doing laundry. You're gonna be in a kitchen. You're not gonna work somewhere where they actually gonna pay you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet.
Women weren't, women just didn't have the roles then that we have. Right. And so I told my mom, I said, maybe she was sexually assaulted. Maybe she was assaulted. Maybe
it was a relationship that was abusive.
Something. These are the 1920s, 30s.
Yeah.
My mom was born in 1951. No, 52. So my mom was born in 52. So you have to look at the culture towards women.
We fresh out of Jim Crow.
So
we weren't even out of Jim Crow.
We weren't even in Jim Crow. No, Jim Crow was the 60s. So this is pre-Jim Crow era. Right. So I'm like, she probably was raped. And you just don't talk about stuff like that during that time.
No.
So she might genuinely just not know. I don't know any mom who would deliberately keep their child's father. And I'm like, at some point you would have known this. No. At some point, you have women that will keep the father away, but that father's going to show up every now and again. that father's going to,
Yeah, that's true.
that father's going to show up, like, Christmas, birthday.
Something.
At some point, the child is going to be like, oh, that's my father.
Right.
This man never,
Right.
he just never appeared. So
I will say this, because the woman that gave birth to me, is extremely toxic. Extremely. Like, here, this is how I differentiate between the two as far as my own growing up and raising. Now, my grandmother adopted me from her daughter and raised me as her own. My grandparents, okay? They adopted me, they raised me as their own, gave me their name, all of that. The whole, before my toxic ass birth mother had to make it known to everybody that'll listen, I literally thought these old people was hunching and had me. Okay?
Nice way to put it.
But because I can't.
I don't want that image.
Okay, because mind you, these people was old when I got here. Okay,
Right,
they was well into they was knocking them 50 hard. Okay, but they raised me as their own. I was never treated any differently from my mother's other children, from her first husband. Not like literally, and they didn't treat me any kind of way. Like, my sisters loved on me as a sister, and so, I don't agree with everything that my mother did raising me, because she's the only woman I ever referred to as a mother. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't agree with everything she did, but she's not toxic. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? There may have been a toxic instance, well, not even a toxic instance, a negative instance, but she's not toxic. Now, her daughter, on the other hand, extremely. Every interaction has always been something negative. It has been something destructive. It has been something divisive.
And that's the key word, like destructive.
Right.
When you go into addressing toxic behaviors, you have to look at the long-term effects.
Absolutely.
The short-term effects, the immediate effects.
Right. Definitely.
Then the long-term effects, and then the behavioral consequences that come with, your actions, and then the reactions to the people that you are affecting.
Absolutely. The reason why I brought her up was because I have siblings from my birth mother, and all three of my siblings had relationships with their fathers. They knew who they were. We all knew who they were. The only person who didn't know, it was never discussed. There was no information, no hints, no clues, no nothing. Was me. So after my mother passed away, I went to Ancestry DNA. Long story short, found my birth father. Right. So in talking to him and just the hit and miss stories that I got growing up, these are literally two people that did not know each other from a can of paint, got together and made a person.
Basically a one-night stand.
Right.
And that happens.
Right. I don't feel away. Because at this point, I'm 39 years old. Right. I'm just happy to be here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm happy to be here. I have 4 great kids.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that my birth father being more receptive of me than my birth mother has a lot to do with it, and my closure with the entire situation.
Right.
Because once I met him, I literally have closure in my life, if that makes sense.
It
like
makes sense.
He's a great man. He's real cool. Like it's like he came in and he's just instant with it. Just, you my daughter, we here. I've been there the whole time. He don't treat me no different.
As humans, we kind of seek out that validation, especially with people who were trusted to, take care of us and raise us. So you seek that validation,
right?
And I think a lot of that the fact that you didn't have that from your biological mom, and to have this man that you never knew, that didn't really have a part in your and
he didn't know about me,
who didn't have a part in your upbringing,
right?
To embrace you as a father, like you just said, okay, I realized,
because he could have left it at,
he like, I don't know you,
cool.
whatever,
Thanks for telling me. he could have left it completely neutral and cordial, and I
Right.
still wouldn't feel away, because I went into it with the mindset of rejection.
Mm.
Because that's the story you typically hear. You
Mhm.
very rarely hear the happy ending stories
Right.
in these situations.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Typically, the response is always that, oh, well, what you telling me for?
Right,
A ghost,
yeah,
or block,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that the I guess that's my defining point, because the woman that gave birth to me, she would call me out my name. I've been all kind of bitches and whatever. She's written me letters, and I wish I had them right now to this day. I do, just for reference.
Mhm.
But she's written, she said ugly things to my face. She said ugly things about me to family members, to anybody that'll listen. You know what I mean? And when I published my book, she went on a rampage because she just naturally assumed that my book would be about her. Like, just toxic all the way around.
And I read your book. Your book your book is nothing about
hello.
I don't
Ain't got nothing to do with her. You're not even a character in the book, lady.
I'm like, no, I don't.
Ain't got nothing to do with you. But I guess my thing of it was, and especially now that I'm a mother, a better mother than I've ever been, in my opinion, you never gave my mama a penny. She didn't put you on child support. You never said, well, mama, here's some food. Mama, I'll take her for a few hours, give you a break. Because mind you, your mother raised 5 children by herself when her husband died.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you never did any of those things. I graduated from high school. You weren't there. In the mean in between time, you only had ugly, negative things to say about me and the woman who did you a favor and kept your child in the family. Mm-hmm. Just toxic.
Right.
Tear down. Any piano recitals or cheerleading, any type of thing where you could have taken the opportunity to say, you know what? Let me at least be cordial.
Supportive.
Never anything, nothing.
And I think, and I appreciate you sharing that, definitely. What I've learned from my own experience, mm-hmm. and just from you and I talking, is at a certain point it's less about you and more about them.
Right.
It's you have to take a step back and look at, okay, well, the way you treat me is not a reflection of who I am. It's a reflection of who you are.
Absolutely.
And so what I've learned is, and of course I didn't learn this until later in life, is that you learn to set those boundaries and you establish what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not willing to tolerate. And so when you set those boundaries with people, it gives you a sense of freedom.
Yes.
And people, will say, they call you all kinds of names, but you have a choice to make when it comes to somebody contributing negative behavior so bad that they are destructive to your livelihood, destructive to your well-being. So
absolutely.
So when it comes to that, I just like to think that, we just have to give people like that a little bit more grace. I haven't always been the perfect parent. I've gone through, an abusive, a physically abusive relationship and marriage. And I am currently in a process of leaving an emotionally abusive, narcissistic abuse, abusive relationship. And at a certain point, like I said, it became less about me and more about this person's character, because I'm like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a wife, as a mother. And I say, but at the end of the day, who am I apart from somebody's wife? Who am I apart from somebody's mother?
And that's what you have to figure out.
What energy am I emitting out into the universe? Because the energy that you give out,
it comes back.
That's what you're going to attract back to you. So if you're giving out negative and toxic energy and behaviors, you're going to get that back. But guess who else you're going to meet along the way? You're going to meet this bitch called karma.
Hold on, Tam. Wait. No, wait. Okay.
And I've met her.
We're going to put a pin right there.
I've met her.
We, because karma, baby, she need a whole day in and of herself.
But
right now, I wanted to take a moment to thank you for being with me today. Hopefully we'll get you back next week. Hopefully we can get you back next week.
I'm here.
Thanks to everyone that tuned in today. We will be back on next week, and the topic will be posted later on this week. Feel free to chime in, share your thoughts, inbox me, comment, share, subscribe, like, please, please, pretty please. Once again, don't forget that every 1,000 follower, every 1,000 follower, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, it does not matter. Every 1,000 follower, so basically four winners will receive $150. $150 gift card. Free money. No stipulations. Okay? Free money. 1,000 follower, and you'll also get an autographed copy of the first chapter of the upcoming book that will be released in November. It is called Gin on the Rocks. Like that, don't you? And it's not a novel. There's that. So you get all the gin on the rocks. Okay?
Straight,
no chaser. So look forward to that, and we will see you guys on next week with On the Rocks with Jen and hopefully Tam. Bye.
Good stuff.
So, girl, I was